creative razzle-dazzle. Then join the Canary Cry new stock producers and make some refrigerator art for the show. Show your support with your talent at canarycry.party. Your mom will thank you.
Razzle Dazzle, it's Body by Basil, the new exciting fitness craze that will get you Canary Cry swole in no time at all. Just listen to these quotes from our participants. My muscles are huge. It's all or Nephilim. You'll be an apocalypse warlord in no time. Don't wait. Order today and save 33% for just 4 easy payments of only $33.33. You too can have the body of a googly eye, VR headset wearing Nephilim warlord.
A new, raw deconstruction of news and analysis. Introducing Canary Cry New Stalk, the new intense fragrance made specifically for thinking outside the cage. From your favorite podcasters, Basil and Goms.
Gons, can you hear me? I'm hearing reports about a prototype Flippy arm.
Don't tell me. Flippy is coming for our jobs.
That's right. You know what this means.
Yeah, it's wake-up time. Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. It is April 15th. It's tax day. And it's episode number 732, Black Hole Wars. My name is Gonz, director of the Age of Deceit Film, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the land of Newscomb to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And today's emergent phenomena, more prayer, just more prayer. I know, piggybacking on last episode, we were calling out for prayer from the Pray-ducers, which we will call upon right at the top of the show here.
Pray-ducers, assemble!
Yeah, a lot to be praying for. Not just stuff happening in the world, and we'll cover as much as we can today with that. But one of our beloved producers has been in the hospital. This person has been a friend, not just of the show, but personally with Basil. And Basil is still in the hospital with them. And so I do have a note from Basil that we'll play here. And we'll just kick it off with that. And yeah, here it is.
Hey everybody, your best buddy Basil here. And once again, I am not on the show, but my spirit lives on. It's still going on, folks. The hospital dilemma with my good friend and producer of the show. It's been a roller coaster. Things have gotten better. Things have gotten worse. There's good days and there's bad days. And those good and bad days start to become relative to the days just preceding versus a sort of overall condition. So I appreciate everybody's continued patience. And producers, now's the time. This is the time for the Lord to come in and do something amazing. So I really do pray each and every person who is listening to my voice right now. Oh, give it all you got. Give it all you got, guys. We need God to intervene in this one, and soon. So that's everybody's mission. Should you accept it? We believe in prayer on the show. We believe in prayer fervently in our own lives and in the corporate lives of all of our producers and listeners and everything. And, you know, the Canary Cry family, this is a really big part of the Canary Cry family, this producer. You would all know their name. And, yeah, it's time to activate, everybody. We're doing it. Now's the time. Now's the time for God to really do something amazing. So, again, sorry I'm not on the show. It became clear that I will not be able to do the show, even just emotionally, until things change over here. But Gonz has got it under control. He's doing a very good job. He even had a nosebleed on the show. What's going on? What's going on around here, folks? Come on. Like somebody once said, you catch flack when you're over the target. So we must be over the target, and now's the time for the entire Canarium to activate and go to war. It's time for some serious spiritual warfare, folks. So tell your friends, tell your family. Now you don't need to tell them about the show. Now it's just time to activate every prayer network that you have, whether it's your friends, your family, your church, your Bible study, whatever. Let's get the whole gang together on this one, folks. All right. Once again, thank you to everybody for continuing to listen, continuing to support the show. It really means it's just impossible to quantify how much that means, of course, to Gans, but to me, that the way the Lord has ordered my life is that I can drop everything and be there for someone who needs me and doesn't have anyone else, and know that I'm going to be okay, and that not just that I'm running a business that can run kind of well without me there, but know that the Lord has really fostered a family in my life that is irreplaceable. So once again, thank you all. Producers assemble. Think outside the cage.
All right. There's a message from Basil. And, it's pretty wild, in my opinion, that in the many years that we've spent on air, just live, we haven't had too many like ridiculous moments. We've had like cats jump on Basil's head and stuff like that, but we haven't really had like breakdown crying moment, which not that everyone does or anything, but it's one of those things that in the back of my mind, I've always had like, I really hope I never break down crying on air. It would be embarrassing, but I don't know, certain things happen in life and you get into that mindset of just helplessness, really. And there are times when you can't hold it back, So it feels like there's been a few moments like that in the last year or so on the show, just Basil's personal health and with this situation here happening now. So a lot going on, but we know that the Lord is good. His plan is perfect, and we have faith in that, and we carry on and we move forward and just keep pushing. So that's what we're going to do today. And there's a lot to cover, obviously. The world is exploding. World War III started for like the 5th time, so we'll cover that. But I suppose we will get going with a disclaimer just to make sure that we're covering our bases here.
It's time for a disclaimer.
Now listen up, YouTube.
That's right. And just for all the content moderators and censorship managers out there, be they robots or humans, everything you hear on this show comes directly from the mainstream corporate news media. We do not claim to be experts on healthcare, geopolitics, military strategy, corporate law, or the moral and ethical implications of any of these topics, nor do we implicitly or explicitly support or subscribe to any sources or narratives containing misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, as defined by the Department of Homeland Security. We're good boys. All right, YouTube, we're good boys.
Yep, and we're going to try a rundown here.
Oh, no, here's Basil.
Let me bring you up to speed.
All right, we're going to actually start it off with the black hole that was seen on some software over Antarctica, a giant Antarctica black hole. We're going to start the show with Antarctica, and then we'll land the show with Antarctica. But in between, of course, Iran attacking Israel. World War III, it's here. We'll break down all the different angles going on, and really I think this is another example of war propaganda, fear extraction, things of that nature. And then just a quick brief touch on the FBI agents who are struggling to make ends meet. And I got a little personal story to go along with that. And then we will do the Flippy update that we failed to do last episode, which is that robots that are slicing your barbecue ribs, they're here. They're doing it. And we'll cover that. Then, a horrific stabbing that was live streamed in Australia, in Sydney. It was all over the place this morning. We'll talk about that. Not just what happened, but also, of course, the implications and how it might relate to Christian nationalism here at home. And then, of course, because Basil's not here, but really, it's not because Basil's not here. It's because this issue is becoming more and more in our faces and important as we move forward here in the technium, and that is the topic of Bitcoin. And we'll talk a little price action stuff, but also how the world is adopting this technology. And also, we're just a few days away from the halving, so there's that to cover. And then we will talk a little bit about the Brazil Elon Musk situation because I meant to do that last episode, but need to catch up. Elon hung out with Milei. They're making pictures, photo op, the whole deal. And then at the end, again, we'll land the plane with another Antarctica article that meant to do last week, but couldn't do it, so we'll do it today. I tried to balance out a little bit of, stuff that I was not able to cover last week, as well as stuff that happened over the weekend. So hopefully it's a nice, well-rounded show. But we're going to kick it off with Antarctica.
It's cold, Basil. It's cold. Antarctica, go burn.
It's a snowstorm. Antarctica. Ice scientists are penguins.
Antarctica, they're opening the abyss.
Oh, yeah. Even Cody. Cody's really amped about that. Which, by the way, just as a side note, my family left today to go to the zoo. So it's just me and Cody. And Cody's been barking all day. He just does not like being here with me. So you might hear him in the background. But here we go. DailyStar. I picked it from DailyStar because there wasn't a whole lot of mainstream outlets covering this story. But I'll tell you where I saw it. But let's start with DailyStar. Headline here, giant Antarctica black hole weather anomaly spotted near Cape Town. Quote, could be UFO. Okay. All right, that's right. This is also a UFO situation.
You don't know what you're looking at.
What's driving that thing? It's not a space alien.
Alien. It's unidentified.
Says here, a black hole weather phenomenon has left experts baffled after it appeared on satellites for just a few seconds. The strange occurrence appeared to have happened over Cape Town, South Africa earlier this week at around 5 a.m. Satellite images show that around 83 feet waves were spotted off the coast, which all of a sudden just disappear for no reason, with a giant black hole appearing on the imagery instead. According to weather site Ventusky, the hole moves towards land before suddenly fading out right before it actually touches down in Cape Town. The anomaly was posted on Reddit, with users expressing shock and confusion over it, especially considering how the site takes the satellite data. And there's a photo here, and yeah, it's as you would expect, sort of sorry for people watching. It's got the color-coded, what's the infrared situation going on? I don't know if it's exactly infrared, but it's the different color codes of the weather from the satellites, and you have this big dark maroon spot, whereas everywhere else is blue and a little bit of a yellowish tint. And so I saw this on X, of course, social media, people sharing it all over the place. Vicky Verma on X said, breaking, something big fell in Antarctica that caused waves 25 meters high on April 10th. It was pretty big. You see it as a dark oval. And they show the video of the little dark oval. It's not little. It's a huge dark oval. The size, I mean, it would cover the bottom tip of South Africa. So it's pretty big. Now, X immediately had a community note that said it was a software error confirmed by developer. So yes, you go to the Ventusky X account and, they're having fun with it. They say, despite numerous reports of UFOs or Atlanteans launching from the ocean, and then they had the alien and UFO emojis. Yesterday's image of giant waves near Africa was due to a model error, or not unfortunately, but they say fortunately. Our provider, the German Meteorological Institute, has already resolved it, and the forecast is fine. Now, we live in this highly digitized world where we have instruments and everything that are measuring things, and they create the data, and a lot of times there are visual representations of that data, and we react accordingly as a civilization. And, when something like this happens, of course, it's going to draw your conspiracy theorists like, oh, here it is. Here's whatever HARP. Here's UFOs. Here's whatever thing you want it to be. But, I find it interesting that Ventusky, the group here, the actual company that does the software, comes out and says, oh, yeah, it was a glitch, basically. It was a model error. Just a little whoopsie daisy. And, you know, if there truly was a cover-up of things and there were anomalous events going on and anomalous craft and things that we're not supposed to know about as a general public, and it gets caught on these types of surveillance systems, of course you're going to deny it. You're going to blame the software. You know, it's very convenient that when it's inconvenient for maybe the social engineers, then any kind of anomaly that is witnessed by the general public is merely a software glitch. Whereas, you know, the real thing may be a lot more sensational than people are willing to accept. You know, even if they said, "Oh yeah, yep, for sure, this is UFOs." I mean, can you imagine if Biden comes out and like, "Oh, they had the UFO," whatever? No one would care. No one would believe him. So anyway, I wanted to start with that because it was sort of the beginning of the strangeness, the high strangeness of the weekend, especially after Wednesday's show, the early ending of our show, because my nose started gushing with blood. Hopefully that doesn't happen today. But yes, the World War III talks, just as a setup for the World War III talks. You know, this is post-eclipse, post-CERN. Of course, CERN didn't really do anything other than fire up the Large Hadron Collider. It allegedly sucked in the soul of Higgs, the man who invented the Higgs boson. He passed away, I think, at age 93 or 94. I was going to report on that last week, but of course, show cut short. But since then, there's been a lot of wars and rumors of wars.
And you shall hear wars and rumors of wars.
World War III. We can fight the Third World War down there.
So the weekend, or maybe a couple days before the weekend, I guess, Thursday-ish last week, it started with lots of people on social media, on X, warning about an impending attack. Saw it everywhere, and the Jerusalem Post carried it as well here. This was published on April 12th, and the headline was, "Israel expects Iranian attack within upcoming 48 hours, Wall Street Journal." Now, you know, when it comes to military operations, not everything is public. We know this, obviously, for strategic reasons, for national security reasons, or for much more nefarious reasons. We know that what we get through the media, what everybody gets to see and hear, is a mere snippet of what's really going on. So when a warning like this goes out and everybody on social media is freaking out, it does make me wonder, like, okay, what's going on? And sure enough, of course, most people listening or watching know by now, Iran fired a bunch of missiles towards Israel, some drones, and Israel defended themselves. I believe it was the Iron Dome was activated, and this is how CNN reports it. CNN headline here, how Israel and allied defenses intercepted more than 300 Iranian missiles and drones. I'll read a little bit of this one here. Almost all the ballistic missiles and drones Iran launched at Israel in an unprecedented attack late Saturday. See, unprecedented attack. I suppose an attack like this hasn't happened in a while, but apparently they knew about it enough to publish it in the news. So it wasn't unexpected, at the very least. Okay, so the ballistic missiles and drones Iran launched at Israel in an unprecedented attack late Saturday were intercepted and failed to meet their mark, according to Israeli and American officials, highlighting the formidable and multi-layered missile defense deployed by the two allied partners. Most of the more than 300 Iranian munitions, the majority of which are believed to have been launched from inside of Iran's territory during a 5-hour attack, were intercepted before they got to Israel, more than 1,100 miles from their launching points or launch points. Israel's military said Sunday that 99% of projectiles fired at Iran or fired by Iran were intercepted by Israel and its partners, with only a small number of ballistic missiles reaching Israel. In total, around 170 drones, more than 30 cruise missiles, and more than 120 ballistic missiles were launched at Israel by Iran overnight Saturday, the military said. Now, I can play all the clips. Every show out there is playing the clip of Joe Biden saying, "Don't." You know, like the whole warning went out and Joe goes on camera and Iran, you know, just don't do it, you know. And everything is about Biden. Everything is about the geopolitics. And I'm just not going to go there too much with it today because, number one, you can get that on all kinds of different shows. And, if you're here and you've been around long enough, we're not going to just peddle that stuff. We're going to try to find different angles to things. The CNN article continues here. The U.S. Navy shot down at least 3 ballistic missiles using the Aegis missile defense system aboard 2 guided missile destroyers in the eastern Mediterranean, officials told CNN's Oren Lieberman at the Pentagon. U.S. warplanes also shot down Iranian ordnance, Lieberman reported, while it was not revealed from where those U.S. jets operated. There are U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and land-based aircraft well within range of the region. So, yes, this has been a hotbed area for a long time. And I do find it interesting, the timing of it all. Of course, we had October 7th last year, and that started I suppose, this modern or current iteration of the Middle East tensions, which comes and goes over decades, really. It's been decades. Pretty much my whole life, it's been an ongoing issue one way or another, the tensions that exist in the Middle East. And in the moment, after the Gaza initial thing, there was, a big split with people either 100% supporting Israel, or we saw sort of the shattered remains of the woke sort of all buy into a pro-Palestine view. And then there were sort of the middle ground people a lot of centrists, alt people, independent people that were more and more siding with anti-Israel, not necessarily pro-Palestine, but they're more anti-Israel is what I've noticed. And so I've noticed the sentiment for support of Israel is very low in the country. It's diminishing rather quickly. And of course, we've been tracking the split between the Judeo-Christianity that allegedly undergirds the United States and its principles. And, I've been ranting about that for a couple years, about how they're going to, destroy the whole idea of Judeo-Christian. They're going to split the Judeo and the Christian. But it doesn't all happen at once. And I think this type of event really demonstrates it sort of recalibrates or resets the geopolitical military unity between Israel and the U.S. at the very least, or, other Western nations. You got your NATO nations and all that. But really in this situation, it's Israel being the friend and ally of the United States, recalibrating that relationship, at least in the minds of the military-industrial complex, maybe garnering some sympathy from the general public. Hey, they let it go a little too far. They need an event to get people rallying for Israel. And perhaps this also means, more money, of course, coming from the Joe Biden apparatus there. More weapons, more money for Israel. And so in that regard, yeah, I just have a hard time thinking, because Iran must have known. Iran would not have fired this, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. I don't know. I'm not an intel guy. I don't have intel, people giving me messages about stuff of what's going on. This is just outsider looking in and looking at stuff for years and looking at it with the critical thought. Iran had to have known that some missiles and some drones is not going to do anything to Israel. Very similar to, it's a Hail Mary type of thing. And for the consequences, sort of the geopolitical consequences that it would garner Iran, why would they do it? Is it a flex? It doesn't really make sense. And so that's why you kind of wonder, is this something that was pulled off via some infiltrators of ours in that region, which of course we know that a lot of our sort of, unspoken apparatus funds and equips rogue groups, and both sides of war is funded. It's a good way to do things if you're a social engineer and you're sort of the elite class. You don't just take sides. I mean, you probably stack up on one side, but you're able to fund both sides. You can't make it too obvious. You want to make it a little more interesting for the public there. So it makes sense in that regard. And there's another article here that I'll mention along those lines. But yeah, and everybody on the internet freaking out. It's World War III. It's finally here. World War III. Iran attacks Israel. World War III. End times Bible prophecy. It's here. They're gonna blow up the holy site, the Islamic holy site, the Dome of the Rock, and then they're gonna sacrifice the red heifer. They're gonna build the temple, and it's all gonna happen in 1 week. And boom, boom, boom. And we've been talking about that for a long time too. They really could do that in a week. It can happen at any moment. But this event here, well, I do think it is trying to move in that direction. Obviously, there's probably something else going on, and part of it has to do with the restructuring of the world, part of the Great Reset, so to speak. The geopolitical teams shifting strategy, shifting geography, shifting different kinds of tactics. And, to that effect, here we go. This is New York Post here, headline. This is an opinion piece, but the headline here was from March 14th. So this is a month ago, and it sort of foreshadows kind of what we're seeing here. The headline, Biden continues Iran's access to $10 billion just weeks after its proxy killed 3 American soldiers. So I think we talked about this in past episodes where, Biden basically waived a sanction against the Iranians, and they're able to access $10 billion. And hey, maybe that $10 billion helped fund or build some of the stuff they shot at Israel. So, and again, I know that my position on some of this stuff with Israel is not popular especially amongst a lot of believers, people that are very passionate about end times Bible prophecy, have a particular interpretation of biblical eschatology. And in that framework, Israel, the nation state, the modern nation state, can do no wrong, which in my opinion is a very dangerous position to take, especially if you're not clearly defining Israel. If you're able to define Israel as, okay, there's God's Israel, that it's his people, and it's not replacement theology, because people accuse me of that if I start talking about this kind of stuff. But it's more of the extension of everything that happened in the New Testament. And then there is the modern nation state. There's actually the people, it's a big mess. We know this. It's a huge mess, because if you're talking about genetics, if you're talking about region, you're talking about ethnicity, or you're talking about religion, you just have to clearly define what you're talking about when you say Israel. And a lot of times within a certain segment of end times believers, they use the modern nation state title Israel synonymously with ancient Israel, and that gets them into all kinds of things that they expect. And I suppose that is the warning, that if you support a nation state too much, any nation state, that includes the United States, if you just support a nation state too much in a theistic reverence, you're sort of setting yourself up to be deceived by political leaders. That's all I'm saying. So this is EurasiaTimes.com. Just moving on here. Their headline was, Israeli Air Force holds massive drills to hit remote targets. Expert says Iran's nuke facilities on radar. Now, here's the thing. So the whole Iran firing missiles and drones over to Israel, and then Israel having pre-knowledge of that to the point where they're publishing it on news outlets and it's flooding social media. It really is that propaganda warfare type thing, a warfare of narratives, the 5th generation war thing. But also the idea of drills, it's been a long time concept in conspiracy thought, where, an event happens. Oh, there just happens to be some kind of drill, military drill, or some kind of massive cybersecurity drill, or something happening nearby that has something to do with the event that happened. And that's been a common pattern that we've seen. And so, this is Israeli Air Force holding drills, looking at remote targets, perhaps Iran's nuke facilities. How is that? Of course, they didn't fire anything in this occasion, but what if the Iran-Israel thing was one huge drill that, and again, words start breaking down, because if you're talking about, oh yeah, it's a drill, but a drill involves real kinetic weaponry being fired and defended from the other side by firing their own weaponry. I mean, it's a live drill, I guess. It's more of a live drill than just like a theoretical drill. But in any case, I found it interesting that immediately the talks go back to the same old, almost tired out thing about how we can't let Iran have nukes. And, that's the Wall Street Journal had this headline: Israel considered its response to Tehran's barrage of missiles and drones as the U.S. sought to keep hostilities from escalating. Israeli hit on Iranian nuclear facilities seen as unlikely for now. So actually taking out the Iranian nuclear facilities probably not going to happen, even though they did drills. So maybe that was like the threat or whatever. It just seems like kayfabe. All of it feels like kayfabe to me. Of course, at certain levels, real people are being summoned to do real things, but I'm talking more higher level social engineer, and then obviously spiritual level with principalities and powers. And then here, moderndiplomacy.eu headline: impending war with Iran, Israel's lawful opportunity to prevent Iranian nuclear weapons. So once again, this diplomatic opportunity that results from this event of Iran attacking Israel, that to me is more indicative of the real reasons behind these types of live drills that take place. And that's just my take on it, because it's so tempting and easy to just get carried away with everything. This is it. It's the end. Here we go. Jesus is coming back. Rapture's next week. Let's go. And I get it. There's an imminent thing going on. And I feel that as more people begin to realize sort of the whole apparatus is wrong, it's messed up, they've been lying to you for years, it comes in waves. We're a lot of us that have been around on this show and have been following along, all of you out there, we're kind of veterans at this point in the game. You got your Alex Joneses and stuff that have been around for a few decades, which again, you can talk about what his motives or his puppet masters are or whatever. But in just a regular citizen type of situation, we've been at this for a long time. And so we've seen patterns come up over and over again. And it's fun, not fun, but it is interesting to watch each few years, a new generation of people coming to realize the same stuff I was realizing, we were realizing 10, 15 years ago, and then go through all the iterations, right? Like the next event is, you have this new paradigm. Like, whoa, it's a new paradigm, end times kind of stuff, the Nephilim, you kind of start getting to know this kind of thing, and then something happens, and that event correlates with your newfound worldview, and then it's, you're just convinced. It's like, oh, here we go. We got 6 months, we got 3.5 years, whatever it is. And I just want us to be careful and not get carried away with that, because I think that's part of the agenda here, especially believers, especially end times believers. I do believe the social engineers want to rile up that community of believers who believe in the end times, because if those people are truly controlled by the enemy, spiritually speaking, then they know their end is coming, right? At some point. And so one of these times when us crazy Christians are like calling the end, it's going to actually be true. I'm just saying, let's just not say that everything that happens is immediately the end, because there are implications if you stick your neck out and say that if stuff doesn't go down immediately, then you're sort of left looking like a fool. And I think that's part of the agenda, to get a whole bunch of people riled up, a whole bunch of people saying things. And look, I'm just as guilty. Basil, for example, I think it was the 2012 Olympics. He was, and this is an example we bring up often just because it's such a fun example to give. He was convinced that at the 2012 Olympics, we're going to see, at the opening ceremonies, we're going to see UFOs come down. Hey, we're here. We've arrived. We're Quetzalcoatl or whatever, the whole deal. He was convinced. And again, it had to do with being a little bit newer to the worldview, seeing events line up, seeing things in the world affirm this new angle of viewing things, and then being sort of led to believe that something will happen of significance based on that new worldview, and then this current event that's taking place. So, I don't want to fault anybody for feeling that way or thinking that way, because it's the natural thing to do. But as time goes on, at least for me, it's been this lesson of, okay, yes, like these are important events. They matter, and we should be praying for the health protection of the people there, because really the citizens are the victims here. The citizens that are just there in the vicinity of all this craziness. We really have some psychopathic people running the show, but of course, you get high enough, or you get to a certain level of military and intelligence and all this, and everything is a threat. Everything is sort of hanging on a balance. I talked about that a little bit in the last episode, or maybe a couple episodes ago, about the whole article on what it would be like if a nuke went off in New York, and the whole situation. So, or not New York, but DC, and what that would be like. And then talking about how the people that are there now, people that are in intelligence now, and how their mindset must be like, any minute now, everything can go boom, and the world has changed forever. And just having that sort of mindset, it's got its good and bad parts, but I believe that what we should be hoping and waiting for is the return of the Lord, in whatever capacity, whatever eschatology you believe, and whatever that means to you. That's sort of, I believe that's more important, and looking at it through sort of a general view, than get lost in each event, each minutia. Just my take, but also, some would say I'm a little jaded with this stuff, because it's sort of the same thing over and over again. And shouldn't surprise anybody at this point. But there you go. I didn't want to spend too much time on the World War III stuff, but I know it was a big event over the weekend, and it does have lots of implications moving forward. We'll have to see. But there you go. That is the top of the show. We'll cover some more things as time goes on, but I am here to remind you that it is Monday.
Gary, what day is it? Monday. Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Gary, what day is it? Monday.
Yes, it is Monday again. And time just keeps moving, blending with the past and merging with the future. I wanted to mention something. I had a conversation. I mentioned before a fellow churchgoer at the local church that I belong to, who works for the FBI, and he's more. He calls himself low level, but I always kind of side eye him and kind of give him an elbow jab, and because he kind of knows my view on things. We've had conversations, but he was talking to me about how he wants to retire. He's ready to retire, basically. And at this point, in life, he's ready to retire. He still has to work, which I thought was interesting. I was like, you still got to work? I think he's in his late 40s, maybe he's almost 50. So I guess he's not retirement age yet. But yeah, it just goes to show that hey, just because you're an FBI person doesn't mean that you're all the way in there and all the ins and outs of all the evil stuff going on. And I wanted to bring this article because it just hit me right as I think the same day almost as me having this conversation with a fellow churchgoer, FBI employee, I would say. And this is coming from NPR.org. And the headline here: many FBI agents are struggling to make ends meet. Housing costs are to blame. And we won't read it here, but basically they're saying that, stuff is expensive and your FBI people are struggling to make ends meet, just like everybody else, because inflation, but also, not that much cash these folks are making. And it says down here, former President Donald Trump, the preemptive nominee for the Republican Party in the 2024 election, has targeted the FBI workforce with steady criticism for years, and at a quote weaponization of government event at the conservative-leaning Heritage Foundation this week. Oh my gosh, there were new calls to defund the bureau, and I told him it might be a good time to get out, because they're probably going to either completely overhaul the FBI or, maybe create a new, or revamp it, create a new branch or something. And I can see Trump doing that, especially if Trump gets in. He'll dissolve the FBI and then he'll name it something Back to the Future science fiction. It'll be like the I don't know. The Cyborg Watch Crew. I don't know what it would be. You guys can come up with it in the chat. Come up with something good. But Trump will come up with some crazy name for the new FBI, and there'll be a new intelligence, and it'll be, the white hat intelligence operatives here to protect the country. We're restoring the integrity of the intelligence apparatus in this country. And enough with the trafficking and all that, and we'll all celebrate and go, yay. And then in a few years, it'll be the same thing again. So, but yeah, it's just a reminder, kind of going along with the last rant I had about the World War III situation, that, people are people. We're all humans. Even at very high levels of military and governance and all this kind of stuff, they're just people. And until we know for sure that people are irredeemable in some sense, and I mean that in sort of a supernatural eschatological sense. I was thinking about this the other day too, because a lot of people are talking about, we had that conversation with Hope and Tavon, and they mentioned something about how if you got the jab, then you're going to not lose your salvation, but sort of implying that maybe your salvation is in jeopardy because you injected this foreign substance into your body and things like that. And I don't think they were necessarily saying that. I think they were saying that this is sort of the step in that direction. And to that effect, I agree with. Now, the reason why I think, it's an important conversation to have with just an idea of, hey, these are people, is because we don't know when our humanity will be flipped off. I remember Sharon Gilbert talking about this a long time ago. Sharon Gilbert, she's a biologist, author. She's into Bible prophecy, and wife of Derek Gilbert over there at PID Radio and Skywatch. And she was talking about how with certain chemicals, if you have like a pipette and you slowly drip one chemical into another and wait for a chemical reaction, it doesn't happen slowly many times, depending on the chemicals. Sometimes it's that one drop that changes the whatever chemical it is from one thing to another. There's some kind of tipping point. And we as humans don't know that. Only God knows that. And so I think it's important to think about what we are saying, to people, about people, because I thought about this too. It crossed my mind that, there's a lot of people that are doing biohacking stuff, but also just culturally people doing like sort of the gross extreme fringes of tattoo and piercing culture where people get way too crazy with it and they almost want to make themselves look like a different, like an animal or whatever it is. They put in bulbs and they completely color their skin differently and they split their tongue and they do all kinds of stuff to change their appearance. Well, if I was being very honest with that person and say, hey, is that person redeemable? Just in my personal opinion, the answer is yes, because they didn't change anything genetically, right? Or at least, not moving in that direction. It's more self-mutilation rather than, it's not really taking care of your temple, but it's more so that than you're changing your insides. Even with somebody who has a Neuralink chip, very easy to be like, bro, you're taking the mark of the beast. Like, what are you doing, right? But really, is that person redeemable at this point? I would argue yes. I don't think a person who got a Neuralink ship is necessarily irredeemable. Now, maybe if it's in there for long, again, who knows? I don't know. I'm not God. I don't decide these things, which is probably a blessing. And it's a blessing that none of us have, the ability to decide that, because we would pull that nuke trigger way faster if we knew a bunch of horde cyborgs are coming at you or something. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. It was just this whole, I've been very reflective on not just the show, but sort of just in general, the culture of end times and Bible prophecy, and it's reaching a new generation, which it's a two-edged sword. It's great in one way because, man, people are learning about the Bible. That's really what I've been passionate about, is like, hey, open your Bibles. There's a lot in there that applies to today, both culturally, socially, but also personally. It really just speaks to anybody in any generation because of what it is. It's a transcendent document, but it is more than that. It's literally the living word. So, but on the other hand, again, people get carried away with one or two specific details or one or two specific things, and then that's all they can think about. And everything is under that paradigm. And if something doesn't fit it, then you must be a heretic or, apostate or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a tough thing, but I've just had I've been feeling very, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a biblical book named after it. Not Lamentations, but in a sense, there's a remorse, lament type of feeling. And it's not like overwhelming or depressing or anything like that. It's just more like, man, there's a lot going on, and there are a lot of people that are searching and lost, and we ought to really just be nicer to each other. I guess that's sort of the bottom line. Very simple stuff. My brain just goes off into all kinds of directions here. But okay, so bringing the ship back in order here, we will have to postpone the thanking of the producers of Treasure. That includes executive producers and all producers in that regard, because I was planning to get caught up with all the stuff over the weekend so I can do all the presenting of the Treasure producers today, but that did not happen. 3-year-olds have different ideas. 3-year-olds don't care about your plans, your late night Saturday and Sunday evening plans, between maybe like 10 p.m. and like 1 a.m. is usually when I try to get things done, prep stuff for the show and whatnot. But lately, haven't been getting that time. That time dwindles down. The kid goes down. He's finally asleep. It's like 11:45. Oh, man, I'm gonna be 42 next year. My body's just like, at a certain point, my body just goes, not happening, not going to happen. It's like that other day. I felt kind of sick. I was staring at the screen, this computer here I'm standing in front of now, and I couldn't do it. I was there for 5 minutes, and I'm like, I am going to fall over, and it's going to be ridiculous. So I'm going to go lay down. So anyway, I apologize to all the producers, but I am also extremely grateful for all of you. Again, this show would not be in existence without you. And so we thank you so much. And we are trying to figure out better ways to thank you in a public way, especially the monthly producers. Yeah, you guys are there consistently. You guys are really the heart and soul, the backbone in terms of Treasure for the show. And yeah, I think there's a way we can make it more public. It's hard to thank every episode because it's a good big list, which we are so grateful for. But we'll work on that. It's on the list of things to work on. We have plenty to do. We need to get that focus group out. And again, I think I mentioned it last episode, but I believe it would already be out if it wasn't for the situation with Basil and the producer here, because yeah, it's the whole goal was to get this thing published, the film published on the date of the Bitcoin halving, which is happening in 4 days, I think. I'll talk about Bitcoin a little bit later because it's much bigger, folks. Like the stuff that I'm going to talk about with Bitcoin, you saw some of it with, hopefully, if you caught the little sneak peek of Age of Deceit 4 from a few weeks ago. But it's going to become the elephant in the room. I'll talk about it in a little bit. But instead of thanking the producers for treasure, I thought I would thank the producers coming in with their talent right here, right now, just because it's just a good opportunity to get the talent producers a little bit of earlier airtime. They don't always get, they're sort of buried in the back of the show sometimes, and I think they deserve better. so they're going to get a little bit more attention today. So we're going to thank producers coming in with their talent.
Audio production.
One art, please.
All right, we got some audio producers to thank. And the audio producers, I've been saying this for a couple episodes, but audio jingles are jingles and ISOs are like audio memes. So I still think that idea can pick up steam at some point. Audio memes. And so, yes, we appreciate all those coming in with different types of audio production. We're going to start with Jonathan F, because Jonathan F is always submitting stuff here. Here we go.
Jonathan F.
And Jonathan F wrote in just an earthquake jingle for future use. There you go.
Tremor in the force. Magnitude. That seismic activity. Earthquake.
Perfect. There you go. We got our earthquake jingle. So anytime there's an earthquake, we can play that one. Especially because, what was it? There was a couple earthquakes in the last couple weeks that made the news. And, one in New York and the other one where was the other one? My brain is not working for me. Come on, chat. Give me the other one. It was another country, wasn't it? Oh, it was Taiwan. That's right. It was Taiwan on the Pacific Ocean facing side of the island, just right across from that ever so important chip factory. Thank you very much, Jonathan F. Appreciate you always coming in. We also got something from Psalm 40.
In this dark world, he can help you see. Just listen to Psalm 40.
He has a note here. He says, hopefully we won't need this jingle often, and don't forget to pray for our producers in peril.
You're late to the show, that's okay, but you missed the recording from Batzel. I'm still at the hospital, yeah, but don't worry, I'm not sick. I'm there for someone else. Pray for them.
I dig it. It still applies, too. It applies to this very moment. So thank you very much for that jingle. And again, yes, as Psalm 40 said there, I hope I don't have to use it too many more times. In fact, I hope it's the last time we have to use it today. But we'll have to see about that. Okay, thank you, Psalm 40. Oh, we also got something from Brother G. It's been a while since we got something from Brother G. In fact, he sent in a whole slew of things here. He says, love the show, guys. Praying for y'all and all the listeners. God bless you. And, okay, so he made these AI voiceovers. This first one is from Elon Musk.
Hey, guys, it's Elon. Love the show. Great stuff. I know you're on the value for value model, so I have a proposition for you all. Free Neuralinks for the both of you. Let me know if you are interested. Think it over. No pressure. I'd be interested in knowing what's inside your brains. Anyway, I will see you soon. I hope.
Well, I'm sure Elon is very interested in what's going on in my brain. He wouldn't be happy if he saw what was in my brain. Thank you, Elon Musk, for the kind consideration. But I think I'll have to pass. Yeah. Not too stoked on the thing. This hit me the other day where I was thinking, like, my children, I have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old. I have a 22-year-old too, but it's are the 3-year-olds and 7, are they going to be like, Dad, everybody has the Neuralink. Is that really going to be my future? mean, I guess it depends on what kind of people I put them around, but man, it just occurred to me that is a potential future in the next 10, 15 years where I have to have the conversation like, hey, young lady, young man, sit on my lap. Let's open the book of Revelation. And they're going to be like, books? Ew, books. Yes. That's a thing. Thank you very much. That's all the audio production there. We do have art from Sir Dove.
One art piece from Dove.
And let me get that piece of art up. It is a piece from Proverbs. He actually has a note here. Piece for this week's Bible artwork. I did an illustration for Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Sorry about that. But like Basil and Dr. Chris said on Ravel, we don't need those Urim and Thumims anymore. Hope you guys like it. Keep doing what you do, and I'll keep praying for yins. And yes, this is a fantastic image. It looks like a picture of a street. For me, it reminds me of some really narrow streets by the beach, but it's kind of got a little rundown type of town, home-looking type of thing. A lot of phone lines, electrical poles. You got the shoes hanging off the phone lines there, or I don't know. Are they still called phone lines? I don't know. And then in the middle, there's a cat wearing a suit. In the back, he's sort of peeking out from the edge there. And then you got these dogs rolling dice, playing the game. And at the top, it says, we may throw the dice, but the Lord determines how they fall. There you go. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. As always, great art. And very important to keep the show culturally relevant, because, man, this is one big culture war. Everything's a culture war. Everything's a battle. And we're so grateful to have artists like Dove making art for the show every day, every episode. Thank you very much, Sir Dove. Oh, you know what? We did have something from Sir Marty K, Knight of the Wrong Timeline. Now, I am wondering, hopefully there wasn't any sound with some of this stuff here. He sent in a couple videos, and let me double check here. Let me read the note. It says, I remember Gonzo talking about going to a sports ball game with his daughter and getting triggered by the mascot. Yeah, it was it a Galaxy game? I kind of forget now. And I think they had like a mascot, and the mascot story was like, oh, it landed in a UFO and something or other and decided to stay. And then he was like hitting on my daughter, who was 6 at the time. And I was like, back off, alien. This ain't no Genesis 6 happening. So I think that's what was going on, if I recall. Yes, I was triggered. Okay, let's see. Let me continue reading it here. Here in Europe, football. Yes, football. Hold on, let me fix that. Football. Only a sucker calls it soccer. Americans, LOL, is the #1 sport. And us Europeans have an almost tribal-like support for our favorite club for life. You are a real supporter. For an American, it is always a lifetime memory to experience the atmosphere at a game, both the outside warming up before a game and inside the stadium, especially if it is a derby match. Oh, is that derby match? Is that like a biblical thing? My favorite club is Brøndby IF. Cody, you got it, bud. And I've been a fan of them my whole life. Here's 2 short videos of before the match and inside the stadium. Enjoy and be marveled, Americans. Bless you all, my Canarians, and be safe out there. Okay, let's take a look. We got a couple videos here. Brøndby IF fans and players going crazy. Oh, this is after. Let me do the before. Okay, I don't know if there's sound. But it's, yes, yep, large crowd. All doing sort of a tomahawk chop in unison. I've seen big soccer crowds. It is impressive. I'm not gonna fade the European soccer crowd. They're definitely some wild folks. You know what though? Okay. Here's what I'll say. All right. Sir Marty K. I get it. You guys are. Well, this other one here. I'm sorry. I'm showing this the second one after they beat FC Copenhagen. There's a huge cutout or something of a Viking or something. I don't know what it is, but they're all cheering. They're all jumping up and down. Here's what I've noticed. Okay, this is an observation. European sports fans, South American sports fans, much more unified. Like they're much more, like everybody participates. You try to do a wave. Oh, here we go. Here you can see the Viking feller there. Oop, it's a TikTok. Let's see. There he is. There, he's a guy. He's got a, what's he holding? He's holding something in his hand. I can't see it, Sir Marty K. This video is too small. But yeah, there you go. Okay, so just as a side note, because Sir Marty K brought it up here. I've noticed that European crowds, South American crowds are all more in unison and they're sort of participatory, right? If you do like a wave across the stadium, everyone's going to do the wave. In America, like sports games, especially like your football and your basketball, you're not going to get that kind of energy and participatory energy from everyone, especially some of those, like bigger teams and stuff. But I will argue that there is not any less passion because it's the Americans, and maybe soccer has some of that too in some of the, especially the South. Actually, you know what? I'll have to double check on this. Maybe I just haven't seen it. But after the games, they always riot. They always start fires. They're burning cars, whether they win or lose. In America, it's like, yeah, we won a championship. Let's everyone roll into the streets and light cars on fire and stuff. I remember when the Milwaukee Bucks, which is an NBA team, won the NBA championship a couple years ago, I think. And yeah, they were like, oh, Milwaukee's shutting down. It's like people are rioting Milwaukee. And there was a whole, film crew filming a whole bunch of people, a huge crowd, and there's cars on fire, people jumping up and down and waving Bucks flags and stuff. And it was like, okay. So yeah, don't underestimate the passion of American fans, sports fans, Sir Marty K. I will say that their expression is a little bit different, though. You're right. The expressions happen with a little more, I don't know, I guess testosterone. Let's just call it that. Because let's be real. If there was a brawl between like American professional football players and European professional soccer players, I will agree that the American or the European soccer players will probably have the stamina to run away. But the American football player, if the American football player, like a lineman, got a hold of some of these soccer players, I don't think it's going to end well for the European footballers. Okay, that's enough of that. Thank you very much, Sir Marty K. Appreciate that. Just always fun bringing some different culture here, especially from all over the world. So thank you for that. Okay, that's it for the producer section here. We have microfiction to catch up on. Again, I'll save that for when Basil gets back. It's just more of a two-man operation. It's just better when there's two people at it with that. So thank you for all the producers. Again, if you would like to contribute art to the show, all you have to do is go to canarycry.art. And if you go to canarycry.art, which I am trying to get to here for the demonstration of this whole thing, if you go to canarycry.art and scroll down, there is a click here to upload art button. Click on that and it'll open up a little form that you can fill out and upload your file. And we will share it on the show if it is appropriate. We haven't had any too many things that are not appropriate or doesn't make the show. We rarely have that. So if you're drawing something, if you're making jingles, if you're making ISOs, things of that nature, do consider supporting the show by contributing with your talent. So thank you very much. Okay. Are we ready for Flippy? Am I ready? I don't know if I'm ready for Flippy, to be honest with you. Oh, man. Here we go. Let's see. Where is Flippy? Just did this. Here we go. Oh, you know what? I forgot to play the FBI jingle, too. It's all right. Too late. Too late for that kind of stuff. Flippy update.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Yep, Flippy update. We talk about Flippy as a way to explore all the ways in which robots are taking over the world and how there's not much we can do about it. Yes, the whole tagline. I don't have the whole tagline in front of me here. Longtime listeners know, and they're screaming at their radios or their iPhones or whatever they're listening through, laptops or the speaker. This article is coming from the Wall Street Journal. Yes, Wall Street Journal headline, Meet the Robots Slicing Your Barbecue Ribs. That's right. Meet those barbecue cutting robots. In Denison, Iowa, a robot spends 8 hours a day slicing apart hog carcasses at a plant owned by Smithfield Foods. It serves a dual purpose, producing more ribs for barbecues and smokers while helping ease the U.S. meat industry's long-running labor shortages. Okay. Right off the bat, they're telling us the situation at hand here. Meat packers are increasingly looking to robots for help. Smithfield, the largest U.S. pork processor, began rolling out automated rib pullers at its pork plants several years ago. Yes, we reported on this, which company officials said helps leave less wasted meat on the bone and relieves workers from some of the industry's most physically demanding jobs, allowing workers to be reassigned from pulling loins or ribs to food quality inspection jobs. Oh, good. Keller Watts, chief business officer for Smithfield, said the company, which has roughly 35,000 employees in the U.S., aims to use automation to help reassign some 500 people a year. Quote, "We can repurpose people," he said. "It's a key focal point for us." Oh, yes, we can repurpose them. I don't know why it comes off as so evil when I read it. I don't think that's the tone they meant to say it in, or that they did say it in, but you know, it's funny. Basil's been ranting about how the media has been telling us all for years now that no, robots aren't here to take your job. They're here to help us out. And that's the spirit here that Smithfield is operating their automated robot army. But we can repurpose people is about as euphemistic you can get to, yeah, a lot of them are probably going to lose their jobs, or, you know, if they can't adapt to this repurposing, then what are they going to do? They're basically out of a job. So, you know, they're not telling you everything, but the repurpose people is not, you know, these people that had those jobs because probably they have years of experience doing it and training and a lot of time, effort, energy, life poured into the skill. And so you can't just repurpose those people to do something else if it's not within their scope of skill. I don't know. Again, it's just a weird time. They talk about how, you know, meat packing jobs are tough, they're bloody, they're dangerous, and so, you know, the robots are helping. Short-staffed plants that aren't able to process farmers as livestock can hinder meat companies' sales and limit their ability to expand. Oh, no. Oh, can you imagine companies not being able to expand? Oh, horrific. Raising wages or offering signing bonuses to attract plant workers eats into processors' profitability. Oh, poor processing companies. You know, you can't make enough money. Got to pay people. Oh, so sad. Meat companies are collectively spending billions of dollars on automating some of the more difficult plant roles, which they said can improve staffing and safety while cutting costs. Oh, man. You don't even have to read between the lines. You can just tell that it's all polishing a piece of doo-doo. That's what it is. Meat processors said they don't see automation replacing workers or leading to layoffs, partly because turnover in plants is already high and the goal is to move workers to more skilled, harder to fill roles. Again, they tell you right there. They're not going to replace you. I mean, look, there's already a lot of turnover at these jobs. No, what we're doing is we're upgrading people to more skilled jobs. Roles that are harder to fill. Well, don't you think they would have filled those roles or had those skills if it was easier, or if it was something attainable or something within any given individual's core competency? I don't know. So there you go. I mean, I don't think we have to read all the details here. But you got another highlight here. The U.S. meat industry, with more than $200 billion in annual sales, is under pressure to run more efficiently. Profit margins across the three major protein segments, chicken, beef, and pork, were strained over the past year as operating costs increased, chicken and pork prices fell, and cattle herds dwindled. And this is also, of course, this is also the greater conversation about the war on food, especially real food, meat, chicken, beef, pork. I mean, you don't have to eat pork, but at the very least, chicken, beef, the whole industry. And, there's something to be said about the homestead life. That will become more and more important as time goes on. But there you go. There's your Flippy update. Meet the robot slicing your barbecue ribs. Once again, Flippies, not taking your job, according to these news outlets, but just, helping everybody upgrade, helping everybody learn new skills and making the workplace safer and more efficient. And yeah. It's the same kind of stuff over and over and over again. Doesn't surprise me at all. All right, moving on. Here we go. It's getting biblical, folks.
It's got to be biblical.
This is a horrific story. It just happened this morning. I saw it come across my feed on social media, and it was hitting everybody's feed, apparently. It was a little grotesque. I didn't see the actual footage. I won't show it here. Newsweek.com headline, Bishop stabbed during middle of church service. My goodness. Bishop has been attacked and stabbed during a service at the church in Sydney, Australia. Bishop Mari Emmanuel was conducting a service at the Christ the Good Shepherd Church, which was also being streamed online. Graphic video footage seen by Newsweek is being shared online and shows Emmanuel being attacked on the altar. Sydney authorities say one man has been arrested and that there were no fatalities among those injured in the attack. Well, thank goodness nobody died. In a statement, New South Wales Police Force said, quote, a police operation is underway in Wakili following reports of a stabbing. Officers attached to Fairfield City Police Area Command attended a location on Welcome Street, Wakili, following reports a number of people were stabbed. Officers arrested a male, and he is assisting police with inquiries. The injured people suffered non-life-threatening injuries and are being treated by NSW ambulance paramedics. More info will be provided once it becomes available. And yes, again, I'm not going to dive in deep to the story itself, other than what we've already learned here, which again is horrific. I will comment more on what I've seen online as a reaction of the populace, if you will. And especially in America, it seems that this is stoking the already ongoing pressures to make wartime into holy wartime. Whether you're talking about the Iran-Israel thing, which is a geopolitical conflict, but beneath that or within that is the Islam versus Judaism conflict. And then you have Christianity as that third pillar. I know people often reference the alleged letter that was written about World War III by Albert Pike that I don't think it's been officially confirmed that it was a real letter, but nonetheless, you know, the types of ideas that permeate that social circle, it would be very obvious, I think, for generations that a good way to really, really create chaos and tension in the world is to pin the three monotheistic faiths together against each other, because they take up so much of the population around the world. And so that's the context that I've been warning about Christian nationalism here in America, because so many people that are disenfranchised by evangelicalism, but are politically being activated to respond to the tightening of the autocracy or the totalitarianism that's being unleashed. Naturally, people flock to a resistance movement, and a lot of believers who tend to get hypercharged with American exceptionalism and that type of politics will go into Christian nationalism and blend faith with politics in that way. So that's what I started seeing, at least on my feed, is a lot of people saying, hey, you know, this is the beginning. This is it. You know, we're going to start seeing this more often and da-da-da, which could be true. I mean, if we're talking about biblical prophecy, Revelation 13 says that the beast will be allowed to conquer the saints. And that means conquer the saints. I mean, that's not looking good for Christians when it comes to the carnal situations that believers and followers of Christ all over the world will be in at this time that Jesus spoke about, that the book of Revelation reveals and other parts of the Bible shed light on. Not a pretty time. So, you know, these are just small glimpses of things of that nature. And again, you know, there's a lot of footage from the church itself and a lot of commotion and police officers and things of that nature. I'm showing a little loop clip here of such a clip, but yeah, it's more so, I think, just being on guard. Guard your hearts, really. I guess that's sort of the theme here. The emergent phenomena of this episode is guarding your hearts, because in a time of distress, it's very easy to get stoked up and carried away and get into something that may be meant to not just distract you, but pull you into ideologies and belief systems that are not exactly aligned with not just who you are, because a lot of times people's personalities can change based on this stuff, but more so what God sees who you are. So important stuff. Let me move on, because this is a sad story. We're going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin. And I know people roll their eyes, people turn stuff off, but I'm telling you folks, the stuff that I will mention here hopefully will edify you at the very least.
Is this a crypto? Crypto? Do I look like I know what a crypto is?
Bitcoin go to moon.
Yes. So, as the Iranians fired rockets to Israel, the Bitcoin markets crashed over the weekend. It was one of the biggest crashes we've seen in a while. And finance.yahoo.com had this headline. It was actually mirroring a Fortune article. Headline: Bitcoin's latest crash shows crypto is no haven during war times. No, can't hold crypto during war. Talks about how Bitcoin fell from 70,000 to 62,000, more than 10%, which is so funny because I was talking to Basil a little bit back and forth over the weekend. And I started investing in crypto in 2016, just small amounts, folks. And that's kind of my, not financial advice is if you're going to get into this, don't ape into stuff. Just slowly learn about it. Slowly, if you want to invest in it, buy small amounts, learn about self-custody, things of that nature. But I've lived through enough of the dollar ups and downs to where like a 10% move in the market, like opening my portfolio and seeing, 10, 15% be wiped out in a day. I'm kind of like, Yeah, this is what happens. This is what happens in crypto. you go up, you go down, and you ride the wave, and it's not for everybody. And I was telling Basil, like, man, I must be really jaded. Like, I must have some kind of emotional scar to the degree of not many others can relate to, because stuff like this happens, and I'm like, yeah, yep, normal. Yeah, just as for reference, if anybody is curious, I did lose quite a bit on the Celsius implosion, the bankruptcy. That was all in line with a whole bunch of other companies that all fell apart during the 2022 beginning of the bear market. And there's a cycle, folks. There is a cycle. There's a 4-year cycle. I'll talk about that in a second. There's a 4-year cycle, clear patterns until it's broken. We probably shouldn't expect it to change, but we are currently in the dollar-denominated way of thinking about things. We are in what's called a bull market, which is every 4 years, there's a period of about a year where things just go up. Bitcoin just goes up like crazy. And you can see it in charts, and you can, do your technical analysis, and there's all kinds of indicators and things to do that. But for the next year or so, we're probably going to see another pretty crazy appreciation of Bitcoin, especially as adoption is taking place. Institutions are getting involved. Countries are getting involved. It's becoming a big thing. And so just think about this. The markets crash. And again, just like if you're new to the truthers type of stuff, and, the Iran shoots rockets and drones to Israel, you freak out. It's the end, war, da-da-da-da-da. Same exact thing with these crypto markets. If people that are new to the markets, they're not used to seeing their portfolios dump 10, 15% in one day. And so there were a lot of people melting down on the internet. They woke up and, it's all over. I'm selling everything. It's all going to zero. Settle down, folks. Settle down. It'll be okay. So a couple days goes by. NikkeiAsia.com, this is Nikkei, this is a Japanese outlet, had the headline here: Hong Kong approves first Bitcoin Ether spot ETF. So Hong Kong, which is, of course, basically China, they're creating Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, which I guess start trading next week, which we, just so you understand what this means, if you're new to this or you're unfamiliar with all this, I'm going to try to keep it very basic. Up until the spot Bitcoin ETFs that the United States just approved at the beginning of this year, big players, institutions, companies, sovereign wealth funds, huge corporate, all these big people with a lot of money, they couldn't really buy Bitcoin in a legal way, in a legally protected way. What the Bitcoin ETFs did was provide a vehicle through BlackRock. BlackRock's been the winner in this whole thing. There are other companies that have products that, they sell to their clients. But basically, these companies like BlackRock, they buy the Bitcoin on behalf of their customers through this ETF thing. And so that allows these wealthy people to start buying Bitcoin. And so now this is happening in Hong Kong, which a lot of wealth, Asian wealth, sits in Hong Kong. So we're seeing this happen. Now, this isn't just about like, hey, crypto dollars go up. This is about the elite moving into assets that will protect their wealth. Because we are about to see two things: a redistribution of wealth, number one, but number two, universal basic income. I know we've been talking about universal basic income, but I'm here to tell you it's already happening through crypto. I will explain myself in a second, but the rise of culture, the rise of things like meme coins and stuff, the redistribution of wealth is already happening. Now, I know in the conspiracy world, we've had rumors about Nisera Gesera, this idea that there's I forget the exact narrative with that. It was like a QAnon type of narrative where, there's a guy or a family, they've preserved all these dollars, they have trillions of dollars, they're going to unleash it to the masses, and it's this big redistribution of wealth moment. And I don't know if that particular instance or that particular sort of line of that narrative, if you will, about Nisera Gesera is true. However, I think the principles of a universal basic income that is carried out through what looks like a technological cultural phenomenon is very much in play. And, we saw a little bit of it in 2021 because think about this, folks. 10 years ago in 2014, you mentioned Bitcoin. Nobody knew what you were talking about. Nobody. Now, if you're in the Western world and most developed countries, you mention Bitcoin, they know what you're talking about. That's pretty wild, folks. Ideas that spread and that are and technologies that are used like that. It's something called network effect, and it's very fascinating to see sociologically how fast things happen. And if you really think about what we have with our phones here, our devices, is we have military-grade communication technologies in our hands. And that distribution of that technology happened very quickly as well. Computers happened very quickly, but then smartphones, boom. Within a decade, everybody has smartphones. I think the last I looked, 6 billion people have smartphones across the world. That's a lot, folks. That's 75% of the world has smartphones. So, and then Bitcoin will become the value transfer of that network. And what it's leading to is something a little bit more nefarious. But what we have in a couple days here is the Bitcoin halving. And for those, again, who are new, the idea is that Bitcoin, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin to exist. And the big breakthrough with Bitcoin was that they made something digital that traditionally you can just copy paste. You can't, you can copy paste anything that's digital image, whatever it is. But with Bitcoin, because of the way it works, you can't just do that. You can't copy paste. You can't change the transactions on the blockchain. Going back 15 years now, starting in 2009, every transaction has been recorded in a chain of blocks that are cryptographically secured and are being monitored in real time by tens of thousands of computers all over the world. They're all synced together, keeping track of this ledger. And that's why, there's a whole reason why I called Age of Deceit 4 Eschaton Cipher and the Counterfeit Ledger of Life, because what we're building is somewhat of a ledger of life. It is recording transactions. And traditionally with Bitcoin, it's like, you're just recording me sending someone Bitcoin or somebody sending this person Bitcoin or whatever it is. It's just a monetary exchange. But as time goes on, we've seen different things pop up. Ethereum popped up, created this second, or not a second layer, but a layer on top of what Bitcoin did with the decentralization of in the computing system, and allowed for smart contracts, which is a way for people to have contracts between two parties without any middleman, where the monetary units of account will move if certain conditions are met. So let's say, a company that builds roads creates a smart contract with the general public of that town, and they say, hey, we can fix this road that everyone wants fixed, but our governments aren't doing anything, so let's just raise our own money. Well, they can create it so if enough money gets raised, only then will the money be released, and only then they can make it into the contract where, okay, well, all right, let's raise $1 million to do this. Well, once we hit $1 million, only 10% will come out to fund the first part of fixing it, and then once that's complete, then the next part of them, so it all becomes automated, and you don't need a middleman doing it. It's that's the revolutionary part of it. Now, why am I ranting about this? It's because it changes societies. This is going to change how we interact in society, and they call it a trustless system because you don't need to trust somebody in the middle. You can just trust the code, right? Code is law, and that becomes a very important conversation to have because owning Bitcoin, self-custody of Bitcoin will become, number one, a free speech issue, which already is. Code is a free speech issue that was established in the 90s. And it will become a Second Amendment issue because you will effectively be holding a type of cyber weapon. And I don't mean that in like in a kinetic way, at least in the literal sense. There is a kinetic aspect to this when it comes to proof of work and energy, the energy that it takes to uphold the Bitcoin network. But I'm more talking about your right to own something that can affect the world in a certain way, especially when it comes to monetary units, especially internet monetary units, which Bitcoin is now seemingly going to become. Now, the people say that Bitcoin is slow and all this stuff. Yes, that is a feature, not a bug. It's meant to be that way because what you have is if you present a transaction, you need enough computers to agree that that transaction is real and not malicious before it becomes accepted onto the chain. So yes, it takes some time. There's about every 10 minutes, a block closes on the blockchain. And that's what the miners are doing. These computer places that have these big, huge systems that are all trying to solve equations. They're all trying to solve there's an equation, it's kind of like a puzzle, math equations. If they solve it, they get to be the next block on the chain. And as a reward, they get a little bit of Bitcoin. And that's how new Bitcoin are created and issued into the world. Now, this issuance of the Bitcoin started in 2009 with 50 Bitcoin per block reward. So every time somebody solved the block and the block was attached to the chain, there was 50 Bitcoin that were given to the people that were mining. So 50 Bitcoin's a lot now, but back then it was just a few cents. I have something here for people to see that might help. And okay, so here, excuse me. It started with 50. It is programmed into the code that every 210,000 blocks, that reward gets cut in half. So in 2009, or whenever it started, the Genesis block, each block that was solved received 50 Bitcoin. Well, in 2012, when they reached 210,000 blocks, that reward got cut in half to 25. In 2016, that got cut in half again, 12.5. 2020 got cut again in half, 6.25. And this week, it's going to get cut again from 6.25 Bitcoin per block to 3.125. So, and I'm showing here a list of the Bitcoin halving schedule, because this is hard coded into the Bitcoin network. This happens every 4 years, no matter what, or about every 4 years. It's every 210 blocks, but that comes out to about every 4 years. And so the next one in 2028, we're going to get to 1.5625 Bitcoin. And this continues on, folks, about every 4 years. The rewards getting cut in half until the year 2140, the 33rd halving. Of course, right? 33 halvings. There would be no other way. In the year 2140, there will be 0.0000000 Bitcoin issued because it'll be over. All 21 million Bitcoin would have been minted by that point. Now, just for anyone new, Bitcoin is divisible to the 8th decimal. It just simply means, the same way 1 cent is 1/100th of a dollar, 1 Satoshi is 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Smallest unit of Bitcoin is a Satoshi. And so what has been created with this halving is very interesting because, again, the Bitcoin blockchain is slow, it's all this stuff, but people want to do things on it. And so what we've seen being developed in the last year is something called ordinals. And the developer of ordinals, his name is Casey Rodemer, he is releasing, or I guess him and a few other people, they're releasing a new protocol that sits on top of Bitcoin called Runes protocol, which is launching on the Bitcoin halving, which shows about 609 blocks to go, about four days away until that happens. And Runes basically is trying to create a layer 2 for Bitcoin where people can inscribe things. So these are new ideas, okay? Imagine Bitcoin as one big chain, but you can sort of etch things. You can put graffiti on the chain. You can go back to any block and start assigning things to it. That's kind of what's happening with this layer 2, because the idea of inscriptions is, again, it's new, but the point is that you can assign data, whether it's an image, whether it's some kind of audio. Of course, right now you can't do a whole lot of data because it's not meant to carry a bunch of data. But if it's like an image or text, these are things that can be etched onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and they will live there forever, or in theory forever, for as long as the network exists. Now, somebody already did the Bible. This is actually pretty cool. Somebody inscribed the New Testament onto the Bitcoin blockchain already last year, February 2023. It's called Bible Ordinals. And you can take a look at some of this. You can I'll just click on one of them here. Let's see, which one? I think this is the one. Yeah, here we go. This is the book of Revelation in the King James Version. The entire text is inscribed on, they have all this ID here, inscription 101516. It looks very confusing because it's all numbers and blocks and things like that. But yeah, it's there. It's there for anybody to read. And why is this important? Well, if it happens to be that Bitcoin or some kind of blockchain network, and probably Bitcoin having a big role because it's the first one, it's the main one that people are going to use. If it happens to be that end time stuff gets carried out and Bitcoin has some kind of role to play, remember, you can't just scrub this data that's inscribed on the network. So the Word of God is, at the very least, this King James version of the New Testament is inscribed on the Bitcoin network. And I know there are other ways in the past in which people have inscribed Bible passages and things on the Bitcoin blockchain. And there's a lot of biblical stuff that, the Genesis block and there's ways in which they've made it very religious, the whole Bitcoin experience. But this text is going to be there for anyone to read. And in a world where people are going to be hating Christians more and more, I find it interesting that the text will be there. Everyone will know or have access to the text. So there's going to have to be a willful rejection of what it says. A willful rejection of the warnings, of the eschatological events that are outlined, the social temperament of the time. Jesus talked about as it were in the days of Noah. And again, we know what was going on in the days of Noah. A lot of, Gibborim walking around, Nephilim walking around, watchers mating with human women, and, hybrid species and just weird, crazy stuff happening. It would have to be such a world as that to where, most people are walking around doing that stuff. And then they look at Christians and their sacred text that's inscribed on the blockchain. Well, don't read that. Don't read inscription 101517. That was inscribed on February 14th, 2023 on block number 776,604 because it contains hate speech. That's the kind of world we might move into. But it's not, you got to remember Bitcoin is censorship resistant, but the implications of censorship resistance is not well thought out. And I'm not pro censorship in that regard. That's not what I'm saying. But with biblical prophecy in context, a world of censorship resistance has its consequences as well. And I just want people to start thinking about that because we're so caught up in this censorship war right now, us versus them, the globalists, the YouTubes, these organizations that want to silence people. Yes, that is happening. But it is also pushing everybody to move into this censorship resistant network, Bitcoin, where I think it was, I forget who said it, but somebody said that we're moving offline. We're not going online anymore. We're going to go on chain. Things of value in the physical world whether it be a house, whether it be an item, whatever it is, a contract, they will all eventually start to move towards being inscribed, associated, attached to the Bitcoin network, because that'll be a way for two parties to validate something without a third party. So, yes, censorship resistance, good, but censorship resistance in sort of end times prophecy world, very interesting, right? Because you can't censor the people. So what's the thing that you have left to do? Makes sense. Guillotines. Yeah, Cody knows. Yeah, the killing, the mass killing of the believers. You know, if the writing is on the wall, literally, it's not so much that itself that is the problem. It's the people that believe that, which is the problem. Sorry, yelling at my dog. All right, so sorry, I'm going on this rant about Bitcoin because I feel very passionate about it in the sense that not just an investment. It's much past. It's way beyond just a conversation about investments. Especially as the world adopts this technology. I have a graph here. It's from bitcointreasuries.net, and it shows from basically the beginning of this year, governments have been buying Bitcoin, ETFs and other funds, which means institutions, and then public companies have been buying Bitcoin. A lot of it. And so it'll become normal in the next few years that all companies will have their share of Bitcoin in their portfolio or their, whatever it is, their money, basically, because that's how value will be measured. At least on the internet. Internet money, folks. This is internet money. And what we will see with inscriptions and runes and all this kind of stuff will be very fascinating, because what's going to happen, folks, is they're going to... Basically, the creator, Casey Rodemer, said that he wants to build a token standard for Bitcoin so that we can make meme coins on Bitcoin. That's what they're doing, folks. That's the play, okay? So right now, Dogecoin is the most well-known meme coin. It's its own chain, but their development is really bad. If you go to their GitHub, they're so far behind on the technological front that, yes, they've captured the culture and all this kind of stuff, but technologically, they're not keeping up. There are a whole bunch of other meme coins that are worth way too much money, billions of dollars. Dog with hat. Come on. Dog with hat is worth what? $4 billion or something? Ridiculous, right? But now we're going to have meme coins on Bitcoin, folks. The real meme coins on Bitcoin, which is crazy. It's absolutely insanity. Absolute insanity. Now, on the back of that, I do want to say that I've been wanting to build for a while a small ecosystem for Canarians, producers of the show, especially a way to present certificates of your producership that you guys can hold on to, and not have it be something that's just like a piece of paper or, an email or a PDF or something like that, which has its own value. But I thought it would be cool if we can create our own inscriptions or digital. I think they're going to call it digital artifacts. So everybody, it's no longer NFTs, okay? NFTs are dead. Nobody talks about NFTs. We're talking about digital artifacts now, okay? It's much easier for the common person to understand what you're talking about when you say digital artifact over NFT. Nobody knows what you're talking about when you say NFT. They think, oh, a picture of monkey. Like, yes, but that's not really the point of that. But digital artifact makes sense, because now we're going to have, again, artists are going to, and this is why I wanted to do the art segment. Sir Dove, just as an example, not saying Sir Dove should do this. Sir Dove can start his own art collection on Bitcoin on the Runes protocol, and he'd probably make a killing because he's, it's cool art. You can make a generative project. He can do it. It'd be really cool to do it under the Canary Cry banner, and that's something I would love to do. But, got to be careful with it, because I don't want to necessarily get into the game of, creating a token or something. It would be more so in the realm of collector's items, not so much a coin or money or token or something like that. But those are things I want to do just because I want to leave a trail on the Bitcoin network of our presence and our message. That's really all it is our community, our presence, and our message, in theory, can immutably exist on the Bitcoin network if we do something like this. And it'll be something for future generations to be able to see, but also perhaps, should things start to happen, it's all right there on chain, a possible explanation for what is going on from, our community of believers that have a strange view about things. Now, the other greater conversation, the big elephant in the room for Bitcoin and the conversation moving forward, I documented, and I'm still documenting more and more stuff coming across my desk, and I'm adding it into Age of Deceit 4. The biological properties of decentralized networks, or Bitcoin specifically, not necessarily specifically, but in general, distributed networks, distributed ledgers. There are more papers than I thought being written from scientists and, the realms of science, scientific journals that say, hey, we noticed that blockchains actually work kind of like how we see things work in biology, biological ecosystems. In fact, there was one paper that said that, the properties of blockchains actually, I think they said, I can't remember the exact words, but basically they tick off a few of the properties of biological life. And so when you're talking about AI, you talk about quantum, all these little things coming up in the mix, and you talk about blockchain, it has created a bedrock for computers to exist and reflect and move as biology. And this is where people lose. I lose people. Maybe I already lost you. Maybe I already lost a bunch of people. But it's the big elephant in the room. The Bitcoin blockchain, or all blockchains, will soon eventually become almost like a living thing that we interact with, almost like water. And that's sort of the world where I'm trying to warn about. The type of situation that will not be great for a lot of people if that's what's going on. And if we have large institutions, corporations like BlackRock who control 1% of the entire network, then they can do things that they can make their power plays in the cyber sense, in the context of cyber warfare. So that's the thing. And again, I go down all the rabbit trails in the film, and I show all my documentation there. There's a Robert Merkle quote. He's the man who created the Merkle tree. It's another one of these computer science breakthroughs. And he basically said that Bitcoin is a living entity. And so these are things that, right now, a lot of people are just looking at it as a financial vehicle, and it's, it's a monetary thing. It's a dollar thing. And it probably will preserve the purchasing power of the wealthy as they pour in the dollars, because, we're hyperinflating. And so we're going to keep printing money because the U.S. is not going to default, right? We're in so much debt. We just passed $33 trillion of debt. We keep printing money. We keep borrowing dollars from our future. We're never going to be able to pay that back. But if you can print that money and, not let it inflate all of society all at once, but, have a few assets that can suck it all up, right? Bitcoin is great for that because there's no cap. There's a supply cap. There's a limited number of the asset. But as far as the dollars it can absorb, it is infinite. And I think that's why it's going to be used by the elite to preserve their purchasing power. And I've heard some things about how the multi-millionaires, these millionaires that are, $40-50 million or more, they're planning to use the regular millionaires, the people that are worth $1 to $20 or $30 million, use them as exit liquidity, meaning they're gonna dump whatever assets, prior assets, maybe real estate, because a lot of people stored money in real estate, right? People aren't buying houses. I know people are buying homes to live in, but at least in Orange County in California, a lot of people are in the real estate game, and they buy properties not to live in them, but to rent it out. It's a income flow. It's a cash flow thing. It's an investment, right? Which is, again, it's not great for society because the price of housing keeps going up because people are storing their money in it, and then the people are out on the streets because they can't afford to live in the houses. So it's a horrific thing that's been going on. And so similar things can happen with Bitcoin. And those are my warnings in the financial sense. A little bit longer term, a little bit more crazy. The biological nature of blockchains, how to validate any transactions that we may need to, I don't know, or at least be able to use the blockchain. We may need to be able to encrypt or decrypt using our genetics, our DNA, because that's what's happening. The two-way street is becoming really, really blurred. And there's already tons of articles out there about how people want to store their private keys, which is basically like your password for Bitcoin, in their DNA, like literally inscribe it into their DNA, or put their DNA on the blockchain, things of that nature. This will become a bigger issue. That's where the biometric stuff is going. Your fingerprint, your iris, WorldCoin, all that stuff. Hey, we can't trust anybody, but at least if you want to tap into this network, you gotta validate that you're really you, and the best way to do that, biometrics, and beyond that, your genetics. And that's where we start talking about Mark of the Beast, especially if it's going to change our genetics to a certain level to where perhaps you are irredeemable. And of course, vaccines come into play with that as well. You can bring that into the conversation. So again, Bitcoin has this much larger sociological, technological conversation that will become more, I guess, troubling and prevalent as time goes on. But right now, it's just the adoption cycle where it's become mainstream, and a lot of people are going to perceive to become wealthy. Let's just say that they will. Oh! I'm sorry, I forgot one important aspect of this, which is UBI, Universal Basic Income, the thing that I was talking about earlier. Okay, let me go back to runes, because what happened with the runes protocol, the people that participated very early in the process of runes being built in this last year, they all got what's called airdropped. Basically, they got some free stuff in their wallets. And some of those items that they received for free are now worth thousands of dollars, which within a month or two. I'm not talking like 10 years, folks. I'm talking like 5 or 6 weeks. There's something called Runestone that's like that. Within a matter of weeks, it went from, hey, I'm giving you this free thing. The developers are giving you this free thing as a thank you for, being an early tester of the network, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's worth $7,000, $8,000. That's what airdrops are. And there's a whole culture of airdrop farming. They call it farming because you're farming for different networks to be early on, so that when you get an airdrop, you're basically getting free money. Remember I talked about universal basic income? It's already happening. This is how the redistribution of wealth will take place. It's not going to be just through a government program. It's going to be through these cyberpunk or I don't know. Things like Bitcoin. I guess Bitcoin, the early Bitcoin adopters were cypherpunks, but it's sort of that culture that will bring about a sort of redistribution of wealth. Because if all these just people, developers and random people who are tinkering around on the bleeding edges of technology are all of a sudden millionaires, billionaires, and they have tremendous influence over society and culture, you've changed society already. You don't have influencers like you do in the past. Now, if you're an influencer, you better have a project on runes or Bitcoin or whatever, some project out there. You better have a coin Because how are we supposed to measure your value in the world if you don't have a coin? Everybody's going to have a coin, folks. Everyone's going to have some kind of meme coin or whatever to represent them. That's the world we're going into. And it's very much ripe for the mark of the beast. It makes a whole lot of sense, right? Everyone's going to make an image to this beast who had a mortal head wound yet lived. This individual who was very powerful in war, and in my opinion, defends the nation state Israel, receives a mortal head wound, lives, some kind of miracle is performed, and meets the criteria of God. So a lot of people will believe this individual to be God, the Messiah, because they rose from the dead, or they perceivably were resurrected from the dead somehow. And then they create a token, they create a monetary system surrounding that image, that person, the image that is made in. And then you have to worship it, or else you can't participate in the economy. And then even worse, culturally speaking, if you don't accept the worship, then you get killed. And it's totally fine in this scenario, this end times scenario where the saints are conquered. It's totally fine. You're not with us, man. You're slowing down the progress of humanity, the evolution of man. You're slowing it down. We gotta take care of you. Either go over there where we don't have to deal with you, or if you're trying to stop this thing, we're gonna have to kill you. And that's kind of where things are headed. I know I apologize for being sort of morbid with that, but that's kind of what the Bible says is going to happen before the end. And remember, Jesus comes because if he doesn't, no flesh is going to be saved. It's going to be ugly when he shows up, when he returns. And he's going to restore things because things get so messed up. God intervenes when, especially in judgment, when his creation gets messed up. That's what happened in the days of Noah. Creation got messed up, right? And so we're headed towards that same thing again. And it's like we're working backwards. We had the Tower of Babel, our languages were dispersed, and then we had our time, several generations. And then we're back at the Tower of Babel type of moment where we're breaking down language barriers. We got code, we got math, we got ones and zeros. We're all together now. We can all communicate on this network, irrespective of language. What comes after that, if you're moving backwards on that timeline? The days of Noah, the flood, judgment, all that kind of stuff. So, man, Cody's really having it today. Anyway, I'm sorry. I go on these long rants about this stuff because it is what I'm looking into. It is what I'm researching, and it is what the film is about. But yes, you're probably going to hear about runes. It'll probably hit the mainstream in the next week or two because they're launching at the halving. And so there's going to be this huge network war. This is like a cyber war between people trying to inscribe things and launch their tokens and launch the whole thing right at that 840,000th block of Bitcoin. So there you go. It's just my rambles here. And the whole universal basic income thing as part of the discussion will be more and more palpable. And you're going to hear about these young people that made millions of dollars because they invested into dog coin or something. Literally, I think somebody is publishing a dog coin. It's called dog. I mean, we are sinking to new levels, folks. I mean, they call these people that are in this space degens. It's short for degenerate, and it shows sometimes, man. It's like pretty bad, some of the stuff out there. Okay, let's move on. Sorry about that. I know it's a long rant, but I do think it's important because it is sort of the fabric of society as we move forward. Whether you like it or not, it's not going away. So, and it has everything to do with Israel, Ukraine, all that stuff, because BlackRock is in Israel. BlackRock is, going to rebuild Ukraine. Ukraine is being pressured to finalize their cryptocurrency policy so that they can move forward with stuff. It's going to be part of the rebuild, the Build Back Better thing. You knew it was going to have crypto rails, and so that's going to happen, and we're going to see it happen over the next few years here. So there you go. Okay, let's talk about Elon.
You are already sort of a cybernetic symbiote. Neural nets are taking over from regular programming. So you are connected.
Yeah, Elon is part of this as well, because let me actually go back to this this graph here that shows all the institutional buying since the new year. Tesla, Tesla, the company that makes cars, electric cars, that Elon Musk runs, they are number 3 on the list of Bitcoin holdings. They hold publicly 9,720 Bitcoin worth about, or their cost basis was $337 million. So they bought 9,720 Bitcoin at $337 million, and it is now worth $613 million. I'm telling you, folks, these people are doing this to preserve their purchasing power. It is a hedge against the inflation that's happening. And the MicroStrategy is number 1. This guy, Michael Saylor, you've probably seen him around. He's talking about Bitcoin as energy property in Manhattan before New York. He's got the craziest takes. But he took a huge risk. He took loans out from his company and used the cash to buy Bitcoin. And currently, I think his cost basis here, what is it, $7 billion? And now he's got $13 billion. So it's working out for him. But anyway, Elon Musk, which, by the way, last year, Elon, or maybe 2 years ago it was, Elon Musk tweeted about Bitcoin and like, oh, we're not going to have Bitcoin on our thing anymore. Boom, market crashes like 20%. It's crazy. And then over the weekend, World War III starts. Iran attacks Israel. 10%. 10% drop. So there was a bigger percentage drop when Elon Musk announced that, or tweeted about Bitcoin, than there was when war broke out between Iran and Israel. Just for context sake there. But this here, Elon getting himself into a little bit of trouble with Brazil. And I wanted to do this last episode and mentioned our producer, Jam, who's been sending us links for a long time, maybe close to 2 years at this point. He's been tracking the Brazil situation for a long time. He was telling us when the elections were taking place, that the Soros-funded, your progressive, liberal type of party basically rigged the election, it seemed, and they got in. And so, of course, we have the rise of the populist movement led by technocrat Elon Musk, and he's gonna push back against one of the nations in South America who's not following the populist technocratic program, based on free speech, of course, right? And so this is coming from the economist.com. And the headline here, Elon Musk is feuding with Brazil's powerful Supreme Court. Oh, well, I guess I can play the Supreme Court jingle. Let me see if I can find it in a manageable time. Here we go.
Supreme Court, SCOTUS.
Yeah, Brazil edition. For the past week, serial entrepreneur Elon Musk has been on a very public tirade against Alexandre de Moraes, or Moraes, one of the Brazilian Supreme Court's 11 judges. The dispute is about X, a social media company that Mr. Musk owns. On April 6th, the firm announced that a Brazilian court had ordered it to block an undisclosed set of quote-unquote popular accounts or face hefty fines. In response, Mr. Musk said he would lift restrictions on previously suspended Brazilian accounts and threatened to close down X in Brazil altogether. Parentheses, so far neither has happened. Mr. Moraes then opened an inquiry into Mr. Musk for the obstruction of justice. This prompted Mr. Musk to rail that censorship in Brazil is worse than in, quote, any country in the world in which this platform operates, and to compare Mr. Moraes to a dictator, saying the judge should be impeached and put, quote, on trial for his crimes. So an issue over privacy, a battle between a social media network and its technocratic leader and the Supreme Court of Brazil. This speaks to what Balaji, this is one of these tech billionaires, I think he's a billionaire, maybe he's a millionaire, who made all his money from a biotech company. He wrote a book called The Network State. We've talked about the network state. This is it right here. This is the beginning of the formation of a network state. And I was going to talk about this in the last episode because it was titled Harvesting Populism. this is what's happening. In one angle to this is that Elon Musk, being a technocratic leader, championing free speech, championing the Constitution, is effectively building his very own network state on the back of the United States, the crumbling United States, falling apart at the seams, unable to maintain any kind of resemblance of its foundations from the Constitution to the Bill of Rights. It's all falling apart. But Elon Musk is building that layer too. He's building that technological digital layer onto the traditional United States principles. And by doing so, he's on a sort of crusade. You've seen him do this with other, for example, the Disney CEO saying, F you to, who's the CEO of Disney? I forget his name. Over the advertising situation, because Disney's going to pull out. They're not going to advertise on your platform anymore. Elon was like, yeah, get lost, right? So Elon has this brazen attitude towards any kind of government or corporation that is perceived as being part of the system, right? Which is interesting because Elon is part of the system. He's just, he's the good guy in the system right now. Good guy in quotations. So I see this as clearly Brazil has and I'll quote Jam here. I did ask producer Jam, last week I said, hey, do you have any words, basically just a few sentences that I can quote you about the whole situation? And he did send me some stuff here. Let me just see if I can read it here. He says, definitely what is at stake is to hide who is in control of Brazil and hiding that Brazil is already a dictatorship. I think that is one thing. I think that's why Elon is picking on him, because he knows that. It's one of the only, you got Milei in Argentina. You have Bukele in El Salvador. They're both championing Bitcoin and free speech and populism, and they're sort of the I don't know, satellite entities of the whole Trump populist rising. But Brazil's not following along with the program. In fact, they're sort of the old guard, got in there, got a hold of Brazil before the populist movement can take place during this last election. And so it makes sense that they're on the list to be exposed by the populist uprising, which is why I think it's been a pleasure to follow along, at least with Jam, the blow by blow with all this developing. So just a few more words from Jam here. You can see that Elon Musk challenged the most powerful judge in Brazil and said that judge has Lula on his leash. Elon Musk also threatened to disregard illegal orders from the Brazil's Supreme Court. This turned them crazy. All this seems to have created chaos here, because until then, no one was able to challenge the judge Alexander de Moraes, much less was it so clear in stating that he is a dictator and is transforming Brazil into a dictatorship. Now, even some big newspapers are changing tactics and started accusing the judge of being a dictator. In short, the war has just begun. That is really fascinating, Jam, because it's the same blueprint as here with a lot of it. Expose the corruption, create a clear enemy, or identify a clear enemy, and then even the media starts to shift a little bit on it, right? That's when you know that there's something bigger at play here. It's not so much that Lula, and yes, they're totalitarian type of government, and yes, they're able to operate until they can't. And what's the best way to create a people's uprising? You install a totalitarian government. It's the best way to do it, because you can't just get people to move politically, especially if everything's good. If everything's great, people, that's when corruption starts to happen. This is the ebb and flow of humanity, right? When you're talking about politics, geopolitics, the drama of the wealthy, it all goes back to the ebb and flow of this type of personal drama that gets dragged into these larger things. So let's see. I have other headlines here with similar in nature, but the populist movement being used to push back against any kind of totalitarianism seems to be the trend, seems to be the blueprint being carried out right now. And it's got its good parts. I'm not saying it's bad because, again, you're pulling out of what is more of a totalitarian system. The danger is that the galvanizing energy with, to push back can have its own consequences, especially if we're talking about the pendulum swinging. The left-right pendulum swinging right, swinging left. Eventually it's going to topple over, and then your, swing right is going to keep going right and then eventually come around over the top as a totalitarian system. So it's perfect for the technocracy to rise. And just as sort of a tag with that, we have here from BuenosAiresHerald.com. Argentina to increase strategic alliance with United States. Milei vows an after-hours speech. And this has to do with a whole bunch of stuff, but they did mention Antarctica. So, quote, this is Milei, quote, it will be a logistics center and the closest port to Antarctica, helping to turn our country into the entry point into the white continent, the president said. Quote, it will also help improve the local economy and give support to scientific research conducted by several international Antarctica projects. So Milei is very much the populist gatekeeper for Antarctica, for the West, which I find very fascinating, given all the attention being given to Antarctica recently. And of course, who did Milei hang out with just over the weekend? That's right, Elon Musk. And there's a photo op here of Elon and Milei. They're both giving thumbs up, looking good. Milei's got his leather jacket on. Elon's got his Texas buckle. I mean, the whole thing, they look great. They got their black pants, their cargo pants. This is no longer are our representatives dressing up in nice suits and attire to have a formal meeting. No, we got cargo pants and leather jackets and boots and hey, whatever, man, whatever. We're styling. I find it interesting too. There's some people in the background of this image. I'm very curious as to who they are. But yeah, there you go. Elon meeting with Milei, I'm sure has its own plans. And I'd be curious what Elon thinks of Antarctica. What does he have in Antarctica that might be of interest to him? It is a colder region, which means more computing can take place, more quantum computing, especially because you need those temperatures to be very, very, very cold for quantum computers to operate. So I think that is a play as well, the reason why they want to get down there. So there you go. You got Milei meeting and hanging out with Elon. You got Elon butting heads with Brazil. And we'll keep track of that, praying for everybody in Brazil. And the same way Twitter facilitated revolutions in Africa, I think Elon's using the same weaponry here, basically. And he might pull something off in Brazil, which would be pretty wild if Elon's X facilitates a revolution in Brazil. I mean, talk about a true operation. I mean, man. And then everyone's going to be cheering for Elon because he's championing all the right things in terms of free speech and constitutional rights and your basic freedoms, which is, again, it's a double-edged sword, especially coming from Elon, because it's like, hey, I gave you free speech. Now let me have mine, and let's put brain chips in everyone. Yeah, I know, Cody. Cody's not going to get a brain chip. Nope, not at all, buddy. Yep. Okay, one more story and I'm out of here. Been talking for a very long time. I don't know how this happens. Here we go. One more Antarctica story.
So a new discovery. Antarctica.
Clearly in the bottom of our planet. Advanced Antarctica.
Penguins.
LiveScience.com headline here. Thousands of hidden meteorites could be lost forever as they sink in Antarctic ice, taking their cosmic secrets with them. Oh, so sad. New study warns that 5,000 meteorites could be sinking beneath Antarctica's icy surface every year as a result of climate change, depriving scientists of vital information about our solar system. Oh, those poor scientists are being deprived. Deprived of all the data. Hundreds of thousands of pristine meteorites are currently littered across or just below Antarctica's icy surface. But most of these space rocks could be lost forever over the next few decades as they sink further into the ice due to rising temperatures, a new study suggests. That means we need to step up our efforts to find them before they disappear for good. The study authors argue. I like this. They're gamifying Antarctica. They're gamifying Antarctica meteorites. Yeah, maybe we'll find that each meteorite is inscribed on the Bitcoin network. That'll be a trip. Antarctica has been bombarded by meteorites for millions of years. Most of these space rocks have already sunk deep into the ice, never to be seen again. However, in certain parts of the continent known as blue ice areas, trapped meteorites are freed from their icy prison as wind and sunlight strips away the top layers of frozen water. Some of these meteorites may have been trapped there for tens of thousands of years. Antarctica's blue ice areas are therefore some of the best places in the world to hunt for meteorites. There are about 600 of these areas in Antarctica, which cover around 1% of the continent's surface area. Around 50,000 meteorites have already been found in Antarctica, which is around 60% of known meteorites ever collected worldwide. Huh. Over half of the meteorites that we've collected are from Antarctica? Man. Interesting. Especially if it was an ice wall. You know, it makes sense if somebody's shooting space rocks at us. But it's all, just sort of hitting the fence or just getting over the fence. And so most of it's scattered in Antarctica. I know, folks. Different Earth models there. Most of the space rocks are less than an inch in diameter, but some are much more massive. For example, in January 2023, researchers discovered an Antarctic meteorite weighing a whopping 17 pounds, one of the heaviest space rocks ever found on the continent. Regardless of their size, analyzing these space rocks can help researchers uncover secrets about the origin and evolution of the solar system. Antarctic meteorites are especially useful to scientists because they are well preserved in the ice. Most meteorites that land in other regions quickly become contaminated by minerals, microbes, or people after they hit the ground. However, just because these meteorites lie at the surface doesn't mean they stay there forever. Due to their dark color, the space rocks soak up sunlight, which heat them up. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem, but at high surface air temperatures, this warming may melt the surrounding ice and cause meteorites to sink below the surface. In the past, this melt would have been very rare, but with rising global temperatures due to human-caused climate change, meteorites are sinking much more than before. In a new study published April 8th in the journal Nature Climate Change, researchers used machine learning, a form of artificial intelligence, to predict how many meteorites could be lost as a result of global warming. I hope they didn't use the same software as the guys that saw the huge black hole near Antarctica at the beginning of the show today. It says down here, as further warming is guaranteed unless we immediately stop producing greenhouse gases, time is therefore running out to scoop up these space rocks and, quote, preserve the information that each additional sample contains, the researchers wrote. I don't know. It's very interesting to me That not only are they gamifying Antarctica as like, hey, we gotta find all the meteorites, gotta find all the sacred rune stones in Antarctica before it's too late. And what do these stones hold? The secrets to the universe and the evolution of life, or whatever they said. I mean, this is, talk about re-enchantment of society. This is, I don't know. I feel like this is out there to get people really stoked about going on, you know, pilgrimages to Antarctica to see if they can find some space rock. And if they do, they become celebrities, and you know, they can promote all their woo-woo stuff as part of it. I don't know. Just seems like, and then, you know, of course, Milei is there, you know, taking a fee. He's there. He's the on-ramp to Antarctica. So you got to pay a gate fee there. But maybe he'll help you out, you know, with maps, maybe some equipment. Milei, if he plays his cards right, he will make a lot of money for Argentina there, because they have the port, obviously. But remember, during the gold rush, folks, the people that made the most money, it wasn't the people that found the gold. It was the people who were selling or renting out the tools for people to go hunting for gold. And so if Milei is smart, he would put a whole package together, you know, space rock adventure. Come to the space rock search adventure. And you can get all kinds of tools, you know, you get all kinds of different levels of tools, of surveillance apparati, and go out there, look for some space rock for the good of humanity. I think it could work. I think they should think about doing something like that. All right. I think that's enough for me, actually. You guys are probably sick of hearing me talk anyway. I ramble on. There hasn't been enough Basil in the last few episodes, and I need a little break. I really want that focus group to open, because I want that feedback so I can wrap up the film. I am planning to inscribe something on Halving Day. I don't know if I'll be able to, because the mempool, it's called the mempool. It's sort of the waiting room for transactions on the Bitcoin network. You know, so transactions can get stuck, or there's a whole bunch of different things that can happen. But I will try to inscribe something about Age of Deceit 4 and Canary Cry, the Canary Cry community, and sort of our thesis, if you will, in a sense, and so that it's inscribed on the blockchain. I will leave you with this. I'll leave you one extra thing, because there's no other time for me to share it on this show. It is Bitcoin related, I'm sorry. But you may find it interesting, because it has something to do with what Basil and I had talked about years ago. This was on episode number 37. And the episode was called Numbers. We published it on November 24th, 2012. My goodness, that was a long time ago. 12 years ago, folks. And, excuse me. And in the episode, we talked about something called the vortex mathematics. Vortex mathematics. And apparently, so some people have already figured this out. I came to it on my own. So this wasn't something that I, just found and tried to replicate. I just found this on my own, which led me to believe there's no way I'm the first person to figure this out. And sure enough, I wasn't. There were people that had figured it out in the past. But I don't know that everybody was really understanding the significance of it. Let me try to walk you through this whole thing, okay? I did tweet about this, so I'll read the tweets and then sort of talk as I read the tweets. So what I said was, I wasn't looking for this pattern, and I'm almost certain someone has pointed this out before, which is true, they did. But it does appear that the Bitcoin halving cycle follows vortex mathematics. And I say, come follow me down the rabbit trail. Okay, so here's what I said. We first discussed the Rodin symbol and vortex mathematics back in November of 2012 on Canary Cry Radio. and I have the links to everything. Bitcoin was $100 back then, folks. $100 per coin. And now it is, people are complaining that it's 60,000 because it's not 70,000. The basic principle, okay, hopefully people can follow along here, especially if you're listening, just do this in your mind and hopefully it'll make sense. The basic principle of vortex math is that it creates a perpetual cycle or loop that can theoretically continue infinitely by utilizing digital roots. And I'll explain as simply as I can. Okay, now first, think of a circle, and then think of the circle being divided into 9 equidistant points. Okay, so think of a clock that has 12 numbers, right? So instead of 12, it's 9. It's divided up into 9 parts. 1 o'clock still starts where 1 o'clock starts, so it's, off center, top right. And then it, goes around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9 at the top. Now, start with 1 and double it. Start with 1, you double it, you get 2, right? You double 2, you get 4, right? You double 4, you get 8. Okay, simple math so far. Now you double 8 and you get 16. Now I'm going to pause right there because this is where you need to know about digital roots. Digital roots basically is the number that is found or the number that is that emerges when you add together all the integers of a number. So you have a single digit number at the end. So for example, the digital root of 2024 is 8 because if you add 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 4, you get 8. So digital root of 2024 is 8. So back to the circle, we have 16, right? The digital root of 16, 1 plus 6 is 7. Okay, still following? Not too hard so far, right? And it's not going to be hard, actually, if you follow along. Now you double 7, the number we just got, and you get 14. And of course, 14 is a 2-digit number, so you got to bring it back down to 1 with the digital root. 1 plus 4 is 5. All right? So when you look at that circle and you follow that pattern, 1, 2, 4, 8, what was it? 7, 5, 1. I know it's weird. It's weird. But basically it follows this pattern. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, repeat. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, repeat. And why does it repeat? Because 5 times 2 is 10, 1, 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. So you go back to 1. And so if you do this doubling and digital root process, you get a loop. You forever are in this loop between 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, repeat. Okay? I think that makes sense, right? Now, what's interesting is when you look at the graphic, the Rodin's symbol, it creates the W or I don't know, it's sort of a W shape that follows that 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5 pattern. You see it visually when you look at it. Now, this pattern omits 3 numbers. The 3 numbers it omits is 3, 6, and 9. And we've talked a lot over the years about the number 9. You got Andrea Puharich, who channeled the 9 Ascended Masters, or whatever they were called. And then you have, that Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek was influenced by 9. That's why you have Deep Space Nine. You got all kinds of movies about 9. It's everywhere. So 9 is this sort of important number because it's the last number before, completion, 10 type of thing. So, yeah, what we have here is the 3 numbers that don't touch are 3, 6, and 9. Okay, and those 3 numbers are what's believed to be by Marco Rodin and Randy Powell back in the day. They said this was the key to free energy. Okay, now what I found, I came to this on my own, but then I realized and found out that other people had seen it too, which is great. That's fine. I'm glad. And I'm not shocked that I was the first one to see this because, it's not as crazy as you'd think, but it's also very weird. If you take the block height of the blockchain halving cycle, so remember every 210,000 blocks you have a halving? Well, the first block height, 210,000, is the digital root is 3 because 2 plus 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0. is 3, right? So you got 210,000 blocks, that's 3. The next halving in 2016, the block height was 420,000. 4 plus 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 6. So far we have 3, 6. And then in 2020, the block height is 630,000, which the digital root is 9. And then with this halving, we have the block height will be 840,000, which means 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, right? Because 12, you split it apart, 1 plus 2 is back to 3. Now, I did this all the way to the year 2140, the 33rd halving. The block heights repeat in the digital root form 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, all the way until the 33rd halving in the year 2140, where the digital root is 9. So I saw that and I was like, oh my goodness, that is crazy. But that's not all, folks. So while the block height carries the 3, 6, 9 pattern, the block rewards are very interesting because it started with 50 Bitcoin. Remember I talked about the 50 Bitcoin rewards? Well, every halving, the rewards get cut in half. Well, you start with 50. The digital root is 5. You cut that in half, you get 25. The digital root is 25, or I'm sorry, 25, which means the digital root is 7. You cut that in half, you get 12.5 Bitcoin. And if you add all the integers into one digital root number, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the number there. Then after that, in 2020, the Bitcoin rewards became 6.25. And if you do the digital root of that number, it is 8 plus 5 is 13. 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, and if you do this halving, the Bitcoin amount is 3.125. You do the math there, it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, it's 2. Okay, so you might think, what do you mean, Gons? What are you talking about? I'm confused. Okay, the block height, or I'm sorry, the block rewards, if you get the digital roots of the rewards, they follow the circular pattern, the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1 loop. The digital root of the rewards that get cut in half by Bitcoin or in Bitcoin, every halving follows the digital root, or I'm sorry, let me try it again. The digital roots of the rewards for every Bitcoin halving follows the rodent symbol 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1 infinite circular pattern. The block height, meaning the block number by which the halvings occur, they follow the 3, 6, 9 number pattern that doesn't get touched in this rodent's loop situation. I hope I communicated all this to you properly. If it was confusing, I apologize. I know it's a little bit abstract in some ways, but all I'm saying is that the schedule for the Bitcoin halving mathematically fits this rodent's symbol pattern. And with Bitcoin being touted as a way to create energy efficiency in the world, I think Bitcoin might be a vehicle that will be used to distribute a type of perpetual energy system. I'm not going to say free energy because it's not free. It's more perpetual energies, systems, capturing and storing and using energy. And we will become much more efficient as a civilization doing that. And Bitcoin is going to play a role in that, allegedly. We'll see. But that's what I wanted to share at the end here because it's one of those wild things. I don't really get to talk about it a whole lot. I did make a Twitter thread about it, or X thread. And I did find it very interesting that a symbol that we talked about 12 years ago is coded into Bitcoin. And just as a heads up as well, if you ever look at the charts of any digital asset or any asset, stock markets, whatever it is, just understand that the price movements are reflective of human emotions. That's what they are. And if you look at, for example, Bitcoin, over the weekend, war broke out, lots of red candles for those days because, let me look at the right structure here because I was doing the wrong time frame. But anyway, point being that it's tracking human emotions, which means our emotions are being manipulated by these folks who can buy and sell. They're called whales. And that's why I say, don't get carried away. Guard your heart. Don't get carried away with the price action. Don't get carried away with war talk. Stay grounded, folks. Stay grounded. There's a reason why Jesus talked about building a foundation, on a rock, and also, walking the narrow path. These are principles that transcend fallen creation. And so they will apply to any generation. They will apply to any circumstance. And I think the circumstances we are in now are very much a time where such principles are applicable in a very coherent and maybe more important now than ever before, in a sense, because of what's happening and what we project will happen over the next few decades. So there you go. There's our show for today. Lord willing, Basil will be back Wednesday, but I don't want to make any promises at this point. It is, I think it's a day-to-day type of situation going on right now. So please pray for our producer who is in the hospital. Pray for Basil, that he has the strength to, he might need to make some tough calls in the next few days if things keep going the way they're going, which, I don't know all the details personally, but I know enough to know that's likely the type of thing that might need to happen in the next few days if things don't improve. So, if that's the case, then that's the case. That's what the Lord had planned for this particular producer. So that's on his time, not ours. But so we'll see about Basil returning on Wednesday. But in the meantime, thank you again, everybody, for being here, especially if you made it till the end. You are a champion. You deserve a Bitcoin. You deserve one Bitcoin. That'll only be 21 million, but you deserve one just because you're still here. And I do want to thank some producers who came in with their time before we head out. Let's see. Well, I guess there's really only, timestamp.
It's hard work. Timestamp.
Jade Bouncerson, thank you for giving us the timestamps to our very, very short last episode. We appreciate that. And Morgan E is also out there doing time stamping. Appreciate that. Thank you to Clank for clanking. Thank you for all the producers who have sent in articles. That's another way you can help with the show. If you have an article that you would like to share with us, doesn't mean it's going to be reported on the show necessarily, but it's good for us just to have an idea of where people are at with what they're seeing out there. And, sometimes it's stories that we've not already done, but usually we already are planning to do it, or it's in the queue or something like that. But if we don't get to it, it's usually because we either can't find time for it, or it's something that doesn't quite fit the episodes. But, usually it's just more of like there's stuff that we are definitely going to hit, and then we just don't have time to cover everything. But it's a good database that I think will be valuable as time goes on. And maybe we'll make some of this database public as well, because you guys are sending in good articles. It's sort of a community drudge report type of website, where you can just share links, and then you can have a big link hub of all kinds of stuff going on. Maybe we'll do something like that. But in the meantime, appreciate all of the people submitting articles. That is a time producership on your behalf. My computer's getting very loud. Apologize for that. I don't know what to do about it. Okie dokie. Who else to thank when it comes to time? Our Clippies I think are working on some things. Yeah, I think that is it for now. Okay. Oh boy, I just got kicked out of my own room. Are you guys still here? Did it just go completely blank for a second? Sorry. I don't know what happened. I just logged myself out of the broadcast room here, and hopefully the stream is still going. Chat, anybody in chat? Or did we just lose everybody on the stream? That'd be cool too. At least we're at the end. All right, nobody's saying anything on YouTube. What about X? By the way, I think X comments, if you're on X and you're watching, I think it does show up if you say something, at least on our feed. And also, something, I was checking, something was wrong with our link today, at least on the Face Like the Sun X account. Yeah, it didn't embed the broadcast for some reason. Huh. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It's a clickable link. You can still watch it and everything, but it appears that usually the embedding happens where you can just click on it. You can see it playing, but okay, weird stuff going on today. I don't know what to say. Interesting. All right, well, that's it, folks. That's the show. Appreciate all of you for being here. Appreciate all the producers, especially the treasure producers who I know you've been sitting tight. There's notes to be read. There's shout outs and deducings and knighthoods, and there's all kinds of stuff that need to be done. And we'll get to it. We sincerely appreciate your patience with all that. We'll hopefully be back. Well, I'll be back Wednesday, but hopefully Basil will be back then. If not, then we'll hopefully ask for next week. But there you go. Thank you. No rant here. I'm just gonna go straight to the thing that you should do, which is rattle people's cages. What you do is you walk up to them, you grab them by the cage, and you shake them.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
Yep, ask Noah. Let's take a peek at the calendar real quick. Oh yeah, taxation is theft day. You know what, actually? Maybe today was meant to be my big Bitcoin rant day, because it is tax day, and that's sort of, for hardcore religious Bitcoiners, taxation is theft is a common trope. And it makes sense, So yeah, it all kind of came together in that way. Let's see what else. Oh, tomorrow's the Virginia Tech massacre anniversary. Wow, that was 2007. My gosh, 2007 Virginia shooter. And then Vladimir Putin is first Russian president to visit Libya in 2013. Before the Ukraine war. All right, that's tomorrow. And then Wednesday, Bay of Pigs Day. That's when we'll be back for another episode. Okie dokie. Have an awesome evening, daytime, wherever you may be. And until next time, remember to think outside the cage.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Value for value. We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary cried back support.